Alright, man, peace. Hey, brothers, you ever come across a chick that knows that she's about 2 or 3 levels below you, and she's surprised that you're willing to deal with her, not understanding that you already know the capacity with which you're going to be dealing with her? So the pressure that she's putting on herself is inordinate, it's unnecessary, because you already know what her capacity is, you already know what she's for. She has delusions of grandeur that she's wife material, but you know better. And still, her insecurities come out. I'm not sure if I'm good enough to be with you. And in your mind, you're like, don't worry about it. You have a job to do. And you're going to do your job. That's DeMarcus Cousins. DeMarcus Cousins is that good-looking concubine that has a lot of tread on her tires, but still has delusions of grandeur that she could be a wife. The Warriors already know that DeMarcus Cousins is not wife material. Now, whether or not he'll be able to perform with a high enough level of proficiency and be up to snuff to the degree where they'll consider turning him from a hoe into a housewife, we'll see, but I doubt it. I think that the Warriors are going to handle him with kid gloves, and we'll see what happens. But they already know what this is, and deep down, DeMarcus Cousins knows what this is, because deep down in the heart of a hoe, they know that they can never be a housewife, even though they have those delusions for themselves. Like, you ever see the movie Suicide Squad? They had the character of Harley Quinn played by Margot Robbie, and there was a scene near the end of the film where they were trying to combat the Queen of Heaven figure. And she sent them out a mass delusion where they were able to live in a dream state that embodied what their deepest fantasies were. And in Harley Quinn's deepest fantasy, she was a wife to the Joker. Even though she knew within her heart that not only was she not wife material, but the Joker's not husband material. It's going to be a very similar situation with DeMarcus Cousins and the Warriors. Eventually, he's going to show his true colors. That being a super talented player who cannot control his emotions, and he's going to make himself expendable. The only question is, will the Warriors be able to get through this season, use him for what he's worth, win another championship, and be impressed with him enough to even consider in the offseason putting this concubine up in an apartment? That's the only question. So anyway, they're going to talk about it. I'm going to chime in.
It is happening. You are finally going to walk out onto the court and be an NBA player again. What do you think that's going to feel like?
Kind of nervous about it, actually.
Yeah, you're nervous about it because you know that you're not wife material, brother. Deep down, you never envisioned being a member of the Warriors. People watch the NBA and the NFL, and I always try to tell many of these guys who come into my comment section trying to argue about this league being rigged and that league being rigged. It's like, brother, it's an entertainment league. What you're watching is entertainment. It's like watching a movie. And when you watch a movie, you have certain actors that are star material, star quality. You have other actors that are also star quality, but who are troubled. Like River Phoenix, he was a troubled actor who was very talented. And you have that in the NBA, you have that in the NFL. DeMarcus Cousins is a troubled star who cannot envision himself being a leader on a productive team, on a functional team. So this is a project for the Warriors. And we'll see if they're going to be able to maximize this project, the DeMarcus Cousins project.
You know, at the end of this month, it'll basically be a calendar year. So it's been a long time coming, to say the least.
You've been working with Showtime on this very cool documentary project, and it's given us all these behind-the-scenes looks at your recovery that we normally would never get to see.
You know what we did about you? You'll be back. I feel like I did everything right this year.
You've called this the most challenging, the most difficult year of your life. What were some of the toughest moments for you?
It's almost like a punishment, you know, when you were a kid and you get your favorite toy taken away for a certain amount of time.
Something tells me that you were not punished enough as a child, DeMarcus Cousins.
You know, once you finally get it back, you just feel like you love it even more. So it's kind of one of those feelings. You know, once it's in my hands, I'll take care of it.
They signed Boogie Cousins. Is it over right now? Did the Warriors win the title on July 2nd?
Already favored, and they just got Boogie Cousins.
Now, for those of us who go back far enough, we'll remember when the Chicago Bulls in 1995 signed Dennis Rodman. And to a degree, he was a project as well. But he was different because he already had championship pedigree. And Dennis Rodman had already shown that he can go to a team and take them to the next level. He was one of the original players that almost got the Spurs over the hump back in the mid-90s, in the early to mid-90s. And he, of course, was a pivotal bench player and eventual starter with the championship Bad Boy Pistons, being first known for his dynamic defense and later his rebounding. But Dennis Rodman's basketball IQ was as high as any players in the game by the mid-90s. Boogie Cousins is very different. That's why I state he's a project on a grand scale. The Warriors are going to have to give him bits and pieces of the playbook in increments because he's so used to being the sole focus on a team that was never even good enough to make the playoffs. That shows you that they have a lot of building to do with him because he's a 7-footer who's never had any idea how to win. And when you're dealing with these type of players, it has to be understood that there are different forms of execution out there on the basketball floor. There are certain players that are out there to put up numbers, and there are other players that play to win and know how to win. Boogie Cousins has no idea how to win, and there are going to be some growing pains with him over the course of this season, I promise you that. There are going to be some issues with him and Draymond. There are going to be some issues with him and KD. The only player who seems to be untouchable in their locker room is Steph Curry. Nobody messes with him.
How do you think you're going to come back a different player than you were when we last saw you?
Well, obviously I won't be the same player. I've gotten better. So, a lot of things have changed in my game. Jump shooting, skill work. I think everything has just increased and gotten better.
It honestly will not surprise me if he actually has gotten better, because he's had some time to sit on the bench and examine the game of basketball, how other players are playing it. He may add certain things to his game. And in addition to that, DeMarcus Cousins is never known as a player who's extremely explosive anyway. So it's not like he's going to come back and people are going to notice that he's not leaping as high as he once used to leap, or he's not as explosive with his first step, because he never really had those things in the first place.
We already know that you will be able to dunk when you come back because we saw you dunk on KD in practice.
That was a cool moment. Me and KD, we kind of kid around in practices a lot, getting to our own little one-on-one battle, so it's pretty cool.
You've talked to other guys who've had this injury before, Dominique Wilkins, Bryant. Some guys have this kind of injury. They are never a good enough player again. They can never really continue. Some guys are able to move forward and build a whole second stage of their career.
Dominique Wilkins, to his credit, came back off the Achilles tendon tear and averaged almost 30 points a game the next season. He's probably had the most successful Achilles tendon comeback of any great player in the history of the NBA. As we all know, Kobe Bean was never the same after that Achilles tendon tear.
What did those two guys tell you about how to do it?
Well, with Dominique, that's who I've probably spoken to the most, and he just basically tells me to attack it. Once you realize you are healed, don't think about it. Just go forward.
The guys who weren't able to move forward past this injury, do you let that get into your thought at all?
Not at all. Not at all. One thing that Dominique also spoke on is, they don't know your heart. They don't know your drive. People that do know me, they know I'm very stubborn. I don't like to be proved wrong.
How have those parts?
Well, we know that you're very stubborn. To be quite frank with you, you have a lot of female qualities in the way that you express yourself, brother. No disrespect. No disrespect. Some guys call it being stubborn, when in all actuality, he's just being bitchy.
Parts of your personality really come forward in this last few months.
It's gotten worse. A lot worse.
You're coming back more stubborn than you left us?
Absolutely.
Should the officials be concerned?
Nah, they're on my good side right now.
All right. You had one of the most tumultuous first 6 or 7 years in the NBA of anyone I can think of. And the question always hanging around you is it the Kings' fault? Is it Boogie's fault? Then you go to New Orleans, rave reviews out of the Pelicans locker room. You come to the Warriors, your teammates and coaches, great things to say about you. If you finish this year and that same tip with your coaches and teammates being so supportive of what a great guy you are to have around, do you think that's going to change a lot of the people who doubted you, their minds about you? Because there's organizations that said we wouldn't even trade for him.
No, it's not going to change people's minds, nor should it. Because DeMarcus Cousins is somebody that you constantly have to watch. He's like a powder keg. Now, if you immerse him in an environment that is very productive and that is very functional, then he's going to be forced to conform to a degree. But he's not somebody that you want to be a leader in your locker room. Not at all. You can't bring him onto a team that's trying to build with a bunch of young players and have him be the mainstay, because he's going to fail in that role. But if you bring him onto a team like Golden State where the expectations are very high, and once again, he's that concubine who has delusions of grandeur of becoming a wife, then yes, you're going to set a high standard for him to live up to, and hopefully he'll forget about a lot of his shenanigans.
Probably won't. Probably won't. But, I mean, I can't live worrying about what the next man thinks.
I agree with that, brother.
I know who I am as a person. People that matter around me know who I am. So, it is what it is.
You did get a technical this season.
Right.
On the bench in street clothes, which is very impressive, by the way.
Right.
But in general,
the Golden State Warriors are like every referee's worst nightmare now. They got DeMarcus Cousins, KD, and Draymond. Imagine if all three of those dudes detonate in one game. Oh, my God. The referees might forfeit. They might they might pull a Danny Glover from Lethal Weapon. I'm too old for this shit.
the fiery side of your personality seems to fit in well with this team. You've got Draymond Green. And Coach Steve Kerr, he was just talking the other day about a game in Sacramento a few years ago where you stayed in the game.
Yo, Steve Kerr be ready to set it off, man. Steve Kerr be ready to set it off. He was about to get into one of them guys, one of those bench players on the Warriors. Like, Steve Kerr was letting him know, I got to take shit from Draymond. I got to take shit from KD. I don't have to take shit from you. I don't give a fuck how big you are. We're going to fight.
He's the one that got thrown out because he was going so crazy. And he said he looked and caught your eye.
We were kicking their ass. And, he was pissed. And as they ejected him, we kind of caught eyes and just kind of, gave him away. So, I don't think he could be too mad about that.
What does it mean to you that if you do get fiery and emotional on the court in this stint with the Warriors, you're surrounded by people who've gotten emotional on the court themselves?
I actually prefer teammates that have emotions. It means you care.
No, not necessarily. Passion means that you care. There's a thin line between emotions and passion. Passion is when you're geared towards what your goals are. Your emotions being out of control is normally when you have no prudence, when you have no discernment, when you have no discretion. Because you have to be able to project your focuses and your drives in a productive way, in a functional way that's not going to be destructive to your team.
Compared to a guy that's kind of just nonchalant and goes about it like it doesn't matter. So I want guys that care. I want guys that show they care. And that's something that the team does.
You should not be getting blown out. That's the bottom line.
We could be watching the last run for these Golden State Warriors.
There was a feeling at the start of the season that the Warriors were going to be a title favorite regardless, that you needed them more than they needed you.
Of course he does. I mean, that's not even a narrative. That's just fact.
But then the season has gone along, and do you think it's shifted a little, and they might need you a little more now, too?
I don't really pay attention to storylines.
Sure you do. You're a damn liar. You do pay attention to storylines. And I actually do believe that they need DeMarcus Cousins to cement the notion that they should be the unquestioned favorite to win the championship. Now, if he were not on their roster, I would still pick them to be the favorites, just not the prohibitive favorites like they are now with him.
They're going to say what they have to say. They're going to have their opinions. We're the most hated team in sports. So.
You think you're the most hated team in sports? I would say that there are...
Some people love to be hated. It makes them feel valued. When you've grown up in dysfunctional households, people covet hate. They covet being the recipients of jealousy because it makes them feel valued. That's why oftentimes you'll see liberal black females on the internet talk about how they're the most hated or everybody's jealous of them. It's because the only energy that they can really recognize is negative energy and dysfunctional energy because that's where they dwell, that's where they thrive. DeMarcus Cousins is like that. He does not understand functionality. So that's part of the DeMarcus Cousins project, the DeMarcus Cousins experiment, is if the Golden State Warriors can find a way to recalibrate him to be able to be the recipient of positive energy and positive vibes so that he can emit positive energy and positive vibes. Because you can only emit what you're the recipient of.
There are a lot of people in this country who love to hate the Yankees or the Cowboys.
Well, put us up there. I would say the Warriors are for sure. They hate Kevin, they hate me. I think the only guy they really like is Steph. They may hate him as well.
Do people really hate you, brother? Do you know what the word hate means? That means that they emotionally invested in your destruction on a literal level. Not that they don't want to see your team win. It's professional sports. People are going to root for other teams. When you've been tremendously successful over a long period of time, people want to see your dynastic run come to an end. That's not hate.
They hate Draymond, but I mean it.
Now they might actually hate Draymond.
It is what it is. So I can't worry about that.
The bottom line is getting you back on the basketball court. When people hear Boogie's back, what should they know?
I'm back, and I'm not looking back. Moving forward, I'm leaving it on the floor every night. So I plan on coming back for that top slot.
Well, you're not going to get that top slot this season, bro. I don't see Steve Kerr allowing you to play more than 25 minutes in a game.
Coming back for that top spot. Thank you to Boogie Cousins, most hated team in sports. You buy that?
No, not in sports. Not at all.
NBA?
There's some soccer team somewhere in Europe that's probably the most hated team. Certainly not the Golden State Warriors.
I think they have a couple of players. not a team, though.
Well, let's get to on the court and the fit. How do you think, Tracy, this is going to work? You heard him say he thinks he's actually improved parts of his game since he's been out. But it's a lot of question marks left.
No, not that many question marks. It's going to work fine because Boogie Cousins is not going to have the option but to make it work. Once again, he's like a concubine that's been through many, many men. And now finally sees the opportunity to potentially get quote-unquote wifed by a dude that's 2 or 3 levels above them. He's going to play it safe. He's going to play his position as if he knows what's good for him. He cannot afford to act out. He cannot afford to disrespect Steve Kerr. That's why, once again, that's why I liken him onto a concubine. The concubine by nature is dysfunctional. That's why she's a concubine. If she wasn't dysfunctional, she'd be a wife. So when they're put in precarious situations where they know their life might be on the line, in this case with DeMarcus Cousins, his life is his career, he's going to play the good soldier because he needs his money.
Well, I don't know how long it's going to take for him to gain his rhythm on the offensive end. I mean, that is the one thing that takes some time for a player to come back, is to gain offense of rhythm of being out so long. However, he could come back and do what he does best. That's rebounding. He could defend. He doesn't have to come in and be a savior for this team. Like, they're already great without him. If he could come in and provide great defensive protection at the rim, and he can be a great ball mover, a great passer, initiate the offense like Draymond Green, and rebound the basketball, I mean, that's all they need from him right now.
He is a proud all-star. Do you think he's going to be okay doing that, knowing that he's not going to get the same shot attempts and he's not going to be such a focal point of the offense?
He's not going to have the option but to conform. They're the only team that was willing to give him a chance. He does not want to be known as the guy who upset the apple cart. They're pretty much running on automatic. His only job right now is to be an offensive-minded Andrew Bogut. That's his job.
I'm sure Steve Kerr has been talking to him throughout this season about what his role is, what he expects of him coming back. I'm sure they've been having those talks. So, yeah, I'm sure he's comfortable with that.
It's one thing to talk about it. It's another thing to experience it. It's just because, I mean, look, we've seen it. I'm going to give you the Boston Celtics, right? You can take the specific of Gordon Hayward and how long it's taken him to kind of work back into his rhythm, just like you said, Tracy. And also, all summer the Celtics talked about, we got a lot of pieces to fit in, we got a lot of talent, we all got to learn how to sacrifice. They all talk the talk. We're more than halfway through the season. They're still learning how to walk the walk.
Right, but they don't have championship pedigree. They don't have championship pedigree, Rachel Nichols, so that's a very unfair comparison.
They haven't won 3 championships.
Well,
thank you, Tracy McGrady.
Well, that's definitely true, but Boogie's never even been in a playoff game before. You're around this team every day, Nick. What do you think walking that walk is going to be like?
It's going to be a very, very easy walk. His ass is going to walk like he's walking the strip. His job is to make his money for his pimp. That's it. That's going to be his job. And if he digresses in the least, they're going to cut his ass.
This is a real-life sports science project, guys. Because there's always 2 parts to this all along for the Warriors. How does he fit in the locker room with the rest of the guys? All the guys really seem to like him. But then you say, okay, well, how is this going to play out on the floor? And one after another, players and coaches are kind of like, we'll see. And they're still going to win the title. I believe that wholeheartedly, no matter whether this works or it doesn't. But this group loves to push the pace and run up and down the floor. And Boogie, when he's at his best, he kind of likes to slow it down.
That's why he's only going to play about 15 to 20 minutes. You're very rarely going to see Boogie Cousins on the floor with Steph Curry and the guys who like to get up and down like that. They'll probably match him with KD, with Draymond, mostly when Steph is off the floor, so that they can pace the offense. We know that Kevin Durant likes it in the half court. Draymond likes to manipulate the basketball in the half court. He's very good friends with DeMarcus. They're going to take their time with him.
And Gentry noted last night he's a hell of a passer, so maybe he fits in early that way. But I have some serious doubts as to whether or not they're just going to drop him in and say, hey, Boogie, do your thing, man. And he's just going to get rolling early on. And if he's not rolling early on for a guy that wants to get paid big money and wants that extension after the season from somewhere, that's what I think the Warriors have a little bit of fear of.
Well, the main thing that Cousins is going to have to make sure is that he makes the most of his minutes. Because I don't think that teams are really going to be watching to see if he's going to be that guy averaging 25 and 13 playing 40 minutes a game. They're going to be watching to see if when he's out there for 15 and 20 minutes, how potent is he? How many points and rebounds per minute is he getting? Is he making sure that he's not trying to disrupt the flow of what the Warriors want to do? That's what other teams are going to be looking for.
If he doesn't find his niche early, is he going to rock the boat a little bit internally?
Well, they're trying to make him feel good. His teammates are legit excited about him coming back. He's very well liked in that locker room right now. Draymond Green asked about Boogie's return. Here's what he said.
This is the last game without Boogie Cousins, and I know this is a real simple question, but what is about to change?
All hell about to break loose, so it's going to be fun.
Spoken like a true mama's boy, a true agent of chaos. Go ahead, Draymond.
Thank you, Draymond.
Thank you to Gareth Burke for that, and it's amazing because he's right. We just don't know how. All hell could be about to break loose for the Warriors, unleashed on the rest of the league, or like we've seen, everything internal with the Warriors has not been rosy. When you say, gee, what's going to...
And I do believe that there is the potential for some type of upheaval in the Warriors locker room between Draymond, KD, and DeMarcus Cousins at some point. Because when it comes to the mama's boys, they oftentimes have a difficult time controlling themselves, even when they're dealing with so-called friends.
Happen if he starts to get frustrated? What is the fear? Because yes, this team's at this level. Can they be broken down at any point?
I think they've shown that they can be for stretches, but I think they are way too talented and way too focused on repeating for the third time to let anything derail them. The issue here is DeMarcus going to fit into what they already have in place? And if you're the...
How could he not, though? I mean, come on. What type of questions are these? Is DeMarcus going to fit into what they already have? Once again, he's Julia Roberts in Pretty Woman. She's just so happy to be in that suite with Richard Gere. She's not trying to fuck that up.
You're the Warriors, and you're kind of rolling the dice here. You're leaning on Steph Curry big time. You're leaning on Draymond, who's been in his corner all along saying, hey, this is our guy. He's going to do exactly what we need him to do. But you brought it up in the interview, Rach. DeMarcus needs the Warriors still more than they need him, because everything that they have going for him right now, he couldn't come in a better spot, because all the problems that were going on before, they're all gone. They're playing their best basketball.
Absolutely. That really puts him in a precarious situation, you know, in both a good way and a bad way. Because now he's coming in, and a lot of that toxicity that was existing in the locker room after the aftermath of the Kevin Durant, Draymond Green blow up is dissipated. So now all eyes are on him. So that's kind of the bad way. The good way is that he can come into a fresh room and not be blamed by association for anything that's going on.
All the year, and they feel great about where they're at in the moment.
And as a player, Tracy, he's got to know that this is such an opportunity. And I got to tell you, the guys I know in New Orleans, in Golden State, who've been around him, love the emotion. Absolutely. They love how...
Allegedly.
Love how much he plays the game and how much it's all out on the floor. If you were his teammate, even if it's up and down, how would you feel about him?
I would love playing with a guy like that.
Bullshit, but keep going.
I mean, I played with Ron Artest.
Right.
So I know. I played with guys like this before.
There you go.
Right, but the thing about Ron Artest is that Ron Artest never tried to be a star. Ron Artest, for about a 3-4 year stretch, was probably the best defensive player in the NBA, or at least the best wing defender in the NBA, because we also have to acknowledge Mr. Ben Wallace. And we know that Ron Artest was a bit crazy, but he was a great role player, and he played a winning style of basketball.
Steph Curry is a guy that...
But anyway, that's basically it on that. We'll see how things go with DeMarcus Boogie Cousins and the Golden State Warriors. So peace.